Hey everyone, welcome to the Catholic Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Fisher. Today I'm joined by Michael Lockette. Michael is the founder, creator of Borromeo Cider, and he is from Colorado. So I'm really excited to be chatting with him. But first, question of the week, kind of related. How is your prayer life in the midst of your entrepreneurial journeys? How's your prayer life doing? Let me know. Twitter, Instagram, the Catholicpreneur, Mitch Fisher. I'm on all platforms, most platforms. So, really excited to be joined by Michael. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on and let him introduce himself. Michael, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and dive right in. I just want to go ahead and let you introduce yourself to all the listeners.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'm Mike Lockette, come from Wetmore, Colorado. That's South Central Colorado, about an hour away from Colorado Springs. Married to my wife, Mary Claire. We have 2 baby girls and then a baby boy coming in May. So we're pretty excited and staying busy at the home front.
Very
I
cool.
work full time for the Colorado Air National Guard. And then our big business right now is Borromeo Cider. So I got all of our licenses and permits to be able to ferment hard apple cider.
Very exciting. So tell me about how you started that. Like, why did you decide to start Borromeo? What led you to dive into hard cider?
So I've always had a inclination for entrepreneurial aspects, different businesses growing up. My college degree was actually a bachelor's of innovation. So it was very focused on entrepreneurial skills, innovation. How do you apply that to companies, as well as what's your technical background? So it's a mix between computer science and then business in some regards. So with that education, it really kind of opened up the door of like, how do you start an LLC? How do you get going on basic business stuff? And then from there, over the years, I just always had an itch to do something. So about last year, we were looking at starting something new, and we had some family friends who did a hard cider business nearby, and then they exited out of the arena, so to speak, shortly after COVID. So this individual became kind of a mentor to me on how to perform the craft. I always used to do a lot of homebrew, but to kind of think about it from a business perspective was something new to us. So in this business, in this project, we really wanted to bring forward who we are and our identity at home as an individual, and showcase that in the business. So that's where we came up with the name Borromeo. Saint Charles Borromeo was a bishop from Milan, and he actually was a bishop during the time of the Black Plague. So there's some really cool history to hear about him going through the streets of Milan, performing masses, seeing the sick. But he's also the patron saint for orchards. So it became kind of natural for us to pick him as our patron in the name of our business.
Definitely. I love it. So yeah, I found you on Twitter. How have you been getting the word out? Because you've been kind of documenting your journey of trying to start this. What's worked for you as far as just reaching people to tell people what you're up to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as we got started with this business, we're kind of every day is just iterative baby steps. Like, how do we want to move forward? So, like I said, we formally started last year. We got all of our license to legally produce hard cider last fall. For the state, it was end of October, beginning of November. So throughout that process, it was more or less like, hey, how do I actually get all the beeps and whistles to be able to do this legally? And then also, what are all the technical components as you start to scale up?
Mm-hmm.
We've also been looking at where do we go to sell? Are we going to do a tap room, or are we going to be doing more distribution sales? I say all this to get to where I'm going and your point about getting the word out there. We decided that right now is not a good time to do a tap room. We have a new baby coming. There's too many other things going on in our lives. So we said, okay, let's just invest forward into a distribution model. So what does that look like so far? a lot of friends and families type network, getting it out there in front of people. In the state of Colorado, I have what's called a direct shippers permit, so I can sell to individuals. So they can come on to my website, they can call me, we can make an order, and then I can deliver it right to their doorstep. We also just got our product into our first liquor store a couple weeks ago. So that's another venue where we're starting to grow. Really, my story and how we're trying to get the word out there is via Twitter when we think about web-based social media. We are looking at different ways to do marketing. And I really think that where I want to focus is these different niches. For example, I'm a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. It's an Irish Catholic fraternity, more or less an honorary member. The nearest group was up in Denver, so that's a couple hours away. But I get quarterly newsletters, right? We all have subscriptions to these different products or newsletters, newspapers. And I really want to start marketing those types of communities where you already have a vested interest group to be able to sell our cider club. So that would be direct shipments to people's doorsteps.
Very cool.
Not to say, I think guys like Turned Henning Brewing Company and then the cigar guys on Twitter as well, they're doing great work, right? And I just said to myself, I'm not going to compete with these folks. They're doing a really good job of what they do. And I need to find what's going to work better for me to hit those niches.
Yeah, well, I love it too because I mean, all the products kind of complement each other. Like you said, I feel like there's a lot of like really good Catholic products right now that people are talking about on X. I was able to have Trevor on the podcast. He was the first guest, which is really fun. So it's been fun to kind of network with so many people and find so many entrepreneurs like yourself who are doing these cool things. What's been the biggest challenge that you faced starting this? I can't imagine it's super easy to do what you're doing. So what's been the biggest challenge and how you overcame that?
At first I would say the paperwork, right? How do you get all your documents in place? How do you know who to talk to at the federal level, the state level? And that just became, I'm going to send out emails and just keep driving at it, right? And soon enough, you start talking to the right people, you get the right answers, and you press forward. It's a huge soup of depends who you ask kind of thing. We live on rural agricultural property, so I was able to turn, we have a metal building out on our property, so I was able to turn that into my manufacturing facility, essentially. Not everyone has that same privilege, right? But when we look at trying to rent a facility and all the red tape that goes into building permits, city laws and regulations, right? It's always a big mess. So a lot of last year was just, how do you navigate the red tape and find a solution that gets you to yes? I would say my biggest struggle right now and looking at the future is time. Having a full-time job, having a wife, baby girls, obligations at home, and then where do you fit in time just to crunch out, cider production is kind of my next big thing, right? So we'll see how we get around to solving that problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you handle that right now? Like, what does your day-to-day look like to make that all happen?
So really it just comes down to scheduling and it becomes pretty straightforward. I'm graced in my full-time work where I can do 4 10-hour days a week. So that always gives me an extra day off. But during the actual functional work week, what I'm looking at doing is get home 5:30. We eat dinner with the girls. We put everyone to bed around 7 o'clock. And that gives me about an hour and a half of functional work time before we come back in. And then wrap up for the night. I will say, being part of that daily schedule and rigor, and this has to do a little bit with our story. My ability and opportunity to do nightly prayers makes all the difference in my life. So I always try to budget that in, and that's my wife and myself taking about 20-25 minutes. We either say a Divine Mercy Chaplet or a rosary, and then we have a few other prayers that we add to that, and we try to do that every night. But that makes such a huge difference in my psyche. We all have different challenges and things that we go through, but I can really speak to it on a personal level. My ability to manage anxiety or other things on a day-to-day basis and get incredibly easier as long as I keep that as part of my daily schedule.
Absolutely. I love that. Um, yeah, let's go back a bit, like about you, about some of the prior projects you've worked on way before this, maybe a little bit about your faith journey. Tell us about how all this kind of culminated into where you're at now.
So we'll start with more like the business aspects and the entrepreneurial perspective. You hear it said from a lot of guys or gals who do different business ventures, right? Every time I'm learning something new. May not be successful on paper, but golly, if I didn't do X, Y, and Z, trying to do computer service support, or what I learned in trying to get money for fiber optics, or even trying to manage books on an annual basis with cows, I wouldn't gotten to where I'm at now to be able to structurally build out this cider company. Uh, so I think that would be a word of advice to folks out there. I've been dabbling and since my first like formal quote unquote like business since I was 24, and now I'm 33, right? And those haven't been quote unquote successful. I've learned so much from each one of those ventures. So I'd always tell other folks like, keep going. You don't know what's gonna get you to success, but just keep trying at it, keep praying about it, and learn lessons as you progress. So a little bit about my faith perspective. I was a cradle Catholic. Growing up, we were always pretty good about going to church and stuff. And then, once I hit age 12, give or take, started doing altar serving. And I kind of contribute that to the reason why I kind of kept my faith. It's pretty stereotypical for folks in America, at least, that, we leave the house and then, you don't really stick to your faith, right? And I've had my own challenges and moments where I wasn't really taking my faith seriously. But in my later 20s, I just decided that, especially if I was going to be in a relationship with someone else, that faith needed to be first and foremost. So I actually met my wife on Catholic Match. After going through trying to meet people in person, I finally just said, you know what? First and foremost, you have to find someone who is going to help carry you along the way, and you can do the same for them. So, long story short, I ended up getting on Catholic Match and then met my wife. We got married within a year, as long as it takes to do all the steps and sacraments within the church, right? That's how long it took us to get married. And then, we started just having babies, but we've been married for 5 years. And I would also tell people, and everyone's in a different position, but golly, like my wife and myself are not necessarily the same people, but she has always brought in a certain perspective in different moments of my life to help carry me along, and then I can provide the same to her as well, right? So she's really helped me grow and be able to open up doors in my own spiritual life. That way we can continue to grow deeper in that.
Absolutely. That's really beautiful. What's your advice to like other Catholic men who are, trying to be a good husband, good father, pursue projects like the one you're pursuing, different things? What have you found to be, good advice that you would give that person, or a tip or a trick or a thought process, I guess, that would help?
Yeah, so I kind of just go back to the daily schedule, right? I only have so many hours in my day, and same with everyone else. So you just gotta budget your time. I make it a priority that I'm there to be able to do the nightly routine with our baby girls. Read books, getting dressed, say our night prayers with the girls, and then put them to bed. And then you have to budget your time around that. Some other advice or thoughts I have is, it's not always going to be right, and I have to sacrifice a lot. So I don't really have any other hobbies, right? I used to be a hunter in some regards, or love to go out and fishing and things. When I started doing the cows, all that had to go to the back burner. So my life just became family, cows, and work, right? Which if you love what you're doing, that's great. And that same model kind of applies with the hard cider now. It's like, okay, family, work, hard cider, um, and that's pretty much it, right? And that's just a sacrifice you gotta kind of consider and make sure that you're still balancing out what you think you're being told to do, when you're praying and trying to talk to God and hearing what He has to say to you.
Definitely. Tell me a little bit more about your products. So Borromeo Cider, you are officially like up. You have a website, right? You have your products. What different products do you have? And then like how can people buy from you right now as it stands, and how will people be able to buy from you in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So we have roughly 7 different options right now when it comes to different cider and cider flavors. So we have our standard crisp. Then the next one I usually talk about is our Hefeweizen inspired cider. That's a particular favorite of mine. One of the things I really want to do with this cider company is be able to showcase what can I actually do with just apple juice, yeast, and maybe a few other things, right? I'm not a huge fan, myself and my wife, we're not huge fans of very sweet cider. So I didn't want to back sweeten and go through and add other things to maybe increase the tartness of the beverage. That wasn't my intent. My intent is like, I want to show what I can do and what can be done with just the juice and then going from there, right? And so we experimented with a lot of different yeast profiles. And one of my personal favorite is the Hefeweizen beer yeast. So we do have a special can, and it's dedicated to Saint Bridget of Kildare, who is an Irish saint. And there's a bit of a joke there. We're using a German beer yeast in our cider, which a lot of folks in the craft industry would kind of consider sacrilegious. But to us, we thought it was pretty funny. It tastes great. So we thought, well, why don't we just pair it up with the Irish saint, because she's known for a lot of legends and myths around beer and her efforts to spread the good word. And then from there, we have different flavors. So we do strawberry, wild berry, blueberry, ginger, missing one other, grapefruit at this time. So I'd love to get to a point where we keep on throwing out different either seasonals or experimental type stuff. But that's going to be our baseline. It's just what I talked about so far. And then from a sales perspective, so as we get going, I'm really starting to increase our volume as we speak. Right now, I have a little over 500 gallons of cider in fermentation. So that's going to result in 6,000 cans, give or take, over the next month. So I'm really kind of stair-stepping it as we speak. And so kind of 2 parts. One, we have online sales, doing a cider club. And eventually we'll probably sell like more products that people can just go online and buy on the spot. And then I'm really going to start diving into distribution sales with local liquor stores and across the state, since I can take my product directly to those stores.
Definitely. Very cool. And you said that the tap room isn't something that's feasible right now. Do you think that's in the future? And like, how would that look?
Yeah, great question. So what we decided at the house was that your leases, or at least in my situation, would have to end or start and end based on your annual state limited winery license. So for us, that's November. So we got really close to signing a lease about a month ago, and the lease would have to end this upcoming November, and then we could look at renewing it if we wanted to move forward. So we decided, hey, we're going to put this on the back burner for now. Excuse me. And then we'll reconsider it next November, or maybe beginning of what would be your calendar year 2025. So for right now, we're putting that on pause until then. But we're also looking at some other means where maybe we could do subsidiary businesses and possibly have other folks launch a tap room underneath the Borromeo Cider business name. So that to boil that down, we would be potentially looking at doing a tap room either this upcoming winter season. So either this November, or really will probably be spring of 2025. That way, be ready to go into the big sales season of 2025. But we'll see. I think right now we'll see how production sales go. If it goes well, and that distribution model goes as well as we hope, then we might just stay there. And then we've been talking about doing kind of subsidiary businesses with other folks to be able to kind of partner the name uh, of Borromeo Cider to other people who can then start their own tap room across the state. Within the state of Colorado, I have the ability to do up to 5 geographically separated tap rooms.
Hmm.
And there's, like anything else, how do you navigate red tape? And maybe we could sponsor someone else to be able to start their own business
Mhm.
and do it in that regard. So
That's super interesting. Like I would that would be interesting to see how that like goes down the road. Like the thought of that making it easier for your business to have more reach in the state that you are limited to, but also like giving
mm,
more people the ability to kind of start. It's almost like a franchise, like almost, but
yeah, it could be in some regards. I would kind of look at it. You think about a holding company. So you have a master LLC that could be a holding company, and then maybe you have a real estate branch. You have it's big in agriculture, real estate branch, a hunting branch, there's a cow management branch, right? Maybe a reproduction and seed stock branch. So all those things would be underneath an umbrella company. Maybe we could do the same thing with the Borromeo cider and then
mm,
do it out that way. One of the things and rationale why I love that idea comes down to the premise of individuality, and I really don't want to have a business of employing a bunch of other folks. Like I think employment and provide job opportunities to others is great, but in the same regards, along with this business, right, I want to be able to inspire other folks to be independent in their own abilities to provide for their families and their solve for their own means, right? I think that's something that kind of got lost in our American heritage over the last 50, 60, maybe 100 years, right?
mhm. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely an interesting concept. Um, where can people find you, social media wise, website wise, if they're wanting to check more out and maybe purchase the case?
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. So I'm most active on Twitter or X now, and then I do have a website, and it's borromeocider.com. So I do all the web development as there is to do in a WordPress website. And then from there, all of our online sales go through a third-party distributor, and that's Vino Shipper. And that's my legal means to be able to ship outside of the state of Colorado. But it's also a great POS, so point of sales for online payment systems. So that way I'm not trying to unravel that giant mess, right?
Mhm.
So it's similar to Square, but for the wine industry and online sales. So if folks are interested in buying a case or signing up for a cider club, I would tell them to go ahead and go to the website, and then from there they can hit a store link and then be able to see what we do. A quick bit about our cider club today. Right now, we're looking at sending out club packages on a monthly basis. So this would be 12 cans at this time. Looking at growing that out. Everything in distribution, sales, and production at this point is a scale economy. So my goal is to be able to get to a point where it costs less for the end user to be able to receive, or the end customers to be able to receive their cider at their doorstep. My two biggest costs that I'm trying to solve in that is packaging and then also shipping. So might be changing the cider club where we send maybe on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis, and we send a larger quantity of cider, about 24 or 16 cans at a given time, but that would make the shipping cost more worth it, right? I can't really control how much that's going to cost, but it doesn't seem to be a huge change when I send 12 cans versus 16 cans, right? So I might as well, or even 24, I might as well send more cans, and that works out better for customers.
Definitely. I like that. What's one last piece of advice you give to fellow Catholic entrepreneurs?
Ooh, I think I would go back to what I said earlier about, you're going to learn something along the way, and don't hang your hat on any one thing. You know, I've dabbled in a lot of stuff, and I've felt very passionate about a lot of things. But some doors are closed, right? It's kind of like that. Here I am going off on cows and things again, but there's a Garth Brooks song about unanswered prayers. I wouldn't be where I'm at now in hard cider if I didn't close some doors and decide to move forward in hard cider production, right? And golly, this hard cider business is really starting to take off for us. But man, I was really hoping to be running towers, right? So you always learn something new, and I think this is even advice for myself sometimes too, right? Don't forget to put your trust in God and Jesus, and keep that on the forefront of your heart.
Definitely. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on. It's been a pleasure learning from you. And yeah, wishing you the best of luck moving forward with Borromeo Cider.
Thank you, Mitch. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. God bless. Bye.
God bless. Bye.